Hello, everyone. Another edition of the Ottawa Market, and just with my book published on Canadian identity, national identity, and cosmopolitan community back in 1997. Some critical background on national identity, but today, sort of related to the issue of identity, is we're talking about again what's going on with Greenland. And in this presentation, based upon my background in international relations, I'm going to be focusing on three priority steps that the Greenland, in association with Denmark, could do in order to protect itself, protect Greenland rather, from, all of a sudden be under American occupation, military occupation. What are the three steps? uh, Based upon the need for Greenland and association with Denmark to change the discussion, change the discussion, because as I mentioned before, we're not dealing with a democratically focused government. Trump has already said that they're not, change the Department of Defense, the Department of War. So we can tell we're dealing with warmongers. We're dealing with a predatory um, governance, which seeks to take over and to subordinate and to control and to colonialize countries as a means for um, economic development and more so elite control. And this is what's happening in the United States. Internally, this is what Hitler did. First, he tried to consolidate power inside Germany, and after consolidating power, then he freed himself up to further and expedite his warmongering agenda by trying to control the countries. Now, Greenland, back to Greenland. Three steps that Greenland needs to take in order to change the discussion, because simply talking about the need for Trump to respect its sovereignty, that's not going to work to a fascist. So what can Greenland do through a closer collaboration with Canada? There's already a consular relations open up. I believe that Canada may already have, in fact, a consular office now in Greenland. As a result of these discussions, well, the Greenland needs to, as quickly as possible, consolidate its consular operations in Ottawa and ideally other parts of Canada like Toronto and Montreal. Needs to do that. It needs to, with, parallel to the embassies and consular office that the government of Denmark has. So, number one is Greenland needs to open up and expedite its consular office and get quick funding from Denmark in order to do so. Number two is to get in the bandwagon of what Premier Ford is doing in Canada, what Carney wants to do. We've been in our response of trying to deal with Trump. The Premier of Ontario, Premier Doug Ford, has been a champion of free trade within Canada. Well, that's something that Greenland can start to discuss and see whether it can get involved in that discussion of free trade in Canada. They could have, start discussing free trade between Canada and Greenland in order to expedite Canadian economic participation in broadening the range of economic opportunities for the people of Greenland. So, free trade between Canada and Greenland, that's going to be a top priority as far as bringing Canada and Greenland closer together to be able to resist the Trump annexation threat. Number two, and this needs to be put a part of a explicit timeline in order to show Trump that Canadian and Greenlandic and Danish negotiations are being expedited for this sort of a common front of Greenland and Canada. Number three is a common market. Just like you have Europe started off with a common market, a Canadian Greenlandic common market where there's the free flow of goods and the free flow of people um, without the need for passports and stuff like that. That's going to be in the interest of bringing together Canada and Greenland to be able to resist Trump. So a common market and the potential fourth basis of trying to resist the Trump takeover would be Greenland, while not relinquishing its relationship to Denmark, to become to have some type of status as a province of Canada in order to bring together and consolidate relationships between the Inuit in Greenland and the Inuit in northern Canada. There's been always some close relationship between those communities that can be strengthened. And so a Greenland becoming a province would be definitely ideal if they want to, be part of a political context where we as Canadians are resisting Trump. We as Canadians don't want a takeover of Greenland. That's not in our interest because, as I mentioned before, Trump takes over Greenland. He's just going to put a whole lot of naval ships up there, sweep into northern Canada, and squeeze us, and no more Canada. So it's in our interest as Canadians, in our interest in Greenland, to recognize the common front that we need to form quickly if we are able to resist becoming another footnote in history as being another part of the way that the United States has sought to grow, which is through annexation. So those are my 3 steps that Greenland needs to look at, and we Canadians, is in our self-interest to look at as well. If we are able to protect both our societies from being controlled by a fascist agenda. So number 1 was Greenland needs to expedite its consular operations in Canada. Number 2, consider a formal free trade relationship between Canada and Greenland, sponsored by the Danish government. Number 3 is a common market between Greenland and Canada, and that could involve the government of Denmark if they so too want to be part of that as well. But that would be a bit of a conflict with the EU. And number 4, potentially after the common market, is some type of provincial status in order to consolidate a new relationship, which is going to make things a little bit more money up the water, so to speak, as far as Trump was seeking to annex Greenland, which it views to have little military resistance to such a conquest based upon a fascist mind. So those are my 2 cents worth on Greenland, and you can have your thoughts on that. Thanks for watching another edition of the Autonomy Market and our discussions about Greenland and Greenlandic sovereignty and its relations with Denmark, and why it's not in our interest for Greenland to be taken over by the United States and just Trump and a fascist agenda by Trump. Thanks for watching.